hydration. We all know that water is essential for life. We need water to supply oxygen and nutrients to our tissues, and also to carry away waste products and toxins, and also to keep our joints lubricated and our eyes lubricated and our brain healthy. We need water for all of those things. But the question is, how much water is enough? How much water do you need to drink in a day? Is it 8 ounces? Is it a little bit more? Is it a little bit less? Well, to get your burning questions about hydration answered, stay tuned for this week's episode of the IQ Podcast with me, Dr. Rani Banik, and my special guest, who is a hydration expert. So stay tuned. The IQ Podcast coming right up.
Welcome to the IQ Podcast, hosted by Dr. Rani Banik, America's integrative neuro-ophthalmologist. Get ready to explore the intricate connections between the brain and the eye through neuro-ophthalmology. Journey with Dr. Rani into the world of integrative ophthalmology, where cutting-edge science meets holistic wellness. Discover how to protect and preserve vision through powerful preventative strategies based on eye-smart nutrition and lifestyle modifications. Whether you're an eye care provider or just curious about how to maintain healthy vision so you can see the world more clearly, join Dr. Rani for exciting and eye-opening discussions which will no doubt raise your IQ.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the IQ Podcast, where you can gain insights about vision health and brain health and raise your IQ. I'm your host, Dr. Rani Banik, America's integrative neuro-ophthalmologist, and today I'm so excited to welcome our guest for today's episode, Dr. Dana Cohen. Dana Cohen, MD, received her degree from St. George's University School of Medicine and completed her 3-year internal medicine residency at Albany Medical Center. She then worked side by side with the late Dr. Robert Atkins, a true pioneer in the field of integrative medicine. Well respected by her peers and beloved by her patients, Dr. Cohen, most importantly, is a clinician. She is an internal medicine doctor who has spent her career focusing on integrative medicine. She has helped thousands of patients find relief from a variety of health problems utilizing the principles of integrative and functional medicine. Dr. Cohen practices with an emphasis on the individual and understanding that no two patients are alike. Her results demonstrate that there is an art to medicine and a way to connect with patients on a level much deeper than what is achieved through mainstream medicine. She focuses on nutrition and limits her patients' reliance on prescription medications by using diet, lifestyle changes, and nutritional supplementation. Dr. Cohen's first book, Quench, with co-author Gina Bria, has garnered rave reviews and has a cult following of devotees. It's been published in 6 different languages. Her next book, published by Hay House, is due out September 24th and is called Fuel Up, Harness the Power of Your Blender and Cheat Your Way to Good Health. I'm so excited to welcome to the IQ Podcast, Dr. Dana Cohen. Dr. Dana is a close friend. I've known her for years now. We belong to the same Mindshare community, and it's been a pleasure learning from her and collaborating with her. And I'm just so excited to have her on the show. So welcome, Dr. Dana.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know I've interviewed you before for other formats, like I know we did an Instagram Live way back in the day during the pandemic. So it's great to have you here on the podcast. So for those of you who don't yet know Dr. Cohen, she is very unique in that she's an integrative and functional medicine provider based here in New York City. So Dr. Dana, would you mind just sharing with us kind of your journey? You're an MD, but now you practice, so I guess you've been doing this for a long time. You practice functional medicine. So how did you get involved in this? Because I think you were probably one of the first pioneers in this field.
So yeah, I've been practicing in New York City solely integrative medicine since 1998. And I was just finishing up residency and I saw an ad looking for jobs. And I saw an ad that said world-renowned wellness center is looking for a doctor. And I really thought it was going to be for a spa. And I remember taking it off the wall so nobody else would get it. Which was not nice, but and I called and it was for Dr. Atkins. And I remember, so at the time I was on the Atkins diet. I felt phenomenal. And I ended up meeting with him, interviewing, getting the job, taking the job. And I thank God for him because he changed my life. I was really disillusioned in medicine, even at that point, just finishing up residency. I worked in the VA hospital. I moonlit at the VA, even my first few months of working with Dr. Atkins. And medicine is hard. Primary care is really difficult. And you're given literally 6 minutes to see a patient, and it's putting out fires, it's band-aids, it's not, it's really hard to help somebody. And so I took the job.
You recognized this like very early on, like right out of residency, you recognized this.
Well, I didn't, it was pure luck. I never had an inclination for going into alternative medicine. My family was not healthy. Both my parents died very young. My mom of Alzheimer's, my dad had a stroke at 62, diabetic. We grew up like not the typical American family with a sad diet, standard American diet. And he changed everything for me. I saw miracles on a daily basis just by changing somebody's diet. It was really eye-opening. It was exciting. It was like I wanted more. I was so hungry for it, and it was just fun, exciting. And I worked in an incredible place. And what people don't realize about the Atkins Center is that it was probably about 5% weight loss, 95% complementary and alternative medicine. People would come from all over the world with ailments that I had never even seen in residency, just I remember scleroderma and always starting with diet. And that little step made huge strides for people. So it was.
That is incredible that you had this opportunity to work with Dr. Atkins. What were some of the other, in addition to diet, what were some of the other strategies that you used for some of these unusual conditions or chronic conditions that people came in with?
Yeah, so a lot of, vitamins, supplements, IV chelation, even mind-body medicine. We don't touch on in
never talked about, at least not when I went to medical school. And from what I understand, it's still not really talked about.
But I think the big thing with him was every patient that would come in would get a glucose tolerance test. So a glucose and insulin tolerance test. So you're really looking at the relationship between sugar and insulin and what your insulin does. And I think that tiny little step alone has such an impact on your entire, on everything.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting that you mentioned, the complementary strategies like botanical supplements, IVs, because nowadays we're so used to this, right? In our world, this is just commonplace. But back then it was probably really not just cutting edge, but just
radical.
Yeah, exactly.
It was totally radical. I fought him too. I remember I used to fight him on what is this IV vitamin C? What are you doing? Where are the studies? And he'd sit back and he's like, I want you to spend the afternoon. So he had a massive floor of IV drips going. He had like 25 people in a chair at any given moment, an entire floor dedicated to this. And he did a lot of cancer in his practice. I don't treat cancer, but he did a ton of cancer. He's like, I want you to spend the afternoon. I want you to go down there and I want you to talk to the patients. And I was like, okay. So I'd go down and this is the story I would hear time and time again. So, hi, I'm Dr. Cohen. What are you here for? And he's like, well, I was diagnosed with metastatic colon cancer, given 6 months to live 10 years ago. And I kept hearing the same story over and over and over again. And I was like, oh my God.
It's simply incredible. Yeah. And, this is something I come across, the importance of in the traditional medical world, the importance of evidence-based medicine. But then on the flip side, in the complementary alternative world, not every treatment has a study behind it, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. Right. So it's kind of like a balance between the two. Like you have to take some science and then translate that into what you think is going to be best for the patient, even though there may not be a huge multi-centered randomized trial behind it.
Right. Well, apparently there was a lot of studies about high dose vitamin C and cancer at the time.
Okay, sorry, I take that back then.
But nobody acknowledged it or nobody talked about, So, but there's definitely some things. I mean, we also have to accept the, whatever, I don't know, millions of years of knowledge behind
Mm-hmm.
acupuncture, for example, or indigenous
Mm-hmm.
treatments and their knowledge of what they've done. We have to embrace that in many ways. Like, we can't poo-poo it.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's definitely my philosophy is you don't just kind of minimize it, really try to understand what the patient's going through and listen to what their wants and needs are. And I have some patients who, for example, glaucoma is a very common eye condition. And a lot of people just say, I don't want to take the drops. That's the standard of care is most patients take drops for glaucoma. And I tell them, like, you do need to take the drops, but in addition to that, you can also do these things in addition. So it's not a substitute necessarily, but it's an add-on. It's complementary to what you're already doing, what your traditional doctor has already told you. So
Yeah. I like it that I think about cholesterol. It's such a huge problem subject, statins. Do I take a statin? I think what people don't realize is that first line therapy, and this is in the books, is always lifestyle changes. Always.
mhm,
And
mhm,
where did doctors forget that?
yeah,
How did it become, because it's easy. It's easy to write a prescription. And I can't blame them when you're in a field and you're given 5 minutes to see a patient,
it's a
8 minutes to see
fix,
a
right?
patient.
It's a quick fix. It
Yeah.
takes 10 minutes to talk to the patient about those dietary lifestyle changes versus 2 seconds to write a prescription, right? So that's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but all right. Well, thank you for sharing your story. I'm curious. I know you have done a lot of work in hydration and you've written this amazing book called Quench. I love this book. Everybody, you should check it out. This is Dr. Cohen's first book. How did you become so interested in hydration and the science behind water? I'm curious to hear that story.
Yeah. So, so first, let me take even a step back. As a integrative complementary doctor, I've always known that you need to have a book to have a platform. I've really felt, seeing Dr. Atkins and all of my mentors and peers, like, you need a book. And so I've searched, years and years, what am I going to write my book on? I'm not going to write another book on hormones. I felt like I didn't have a lot more to say, where you have to go see your doctor, get bloods and get prescribed hormones, or even thyroid, although I was probably mistaken. There's still so much to be said about both of
Mhm.
those things. But it wasn't, I just wasn't feeling it. And I couldn't figure out my book. My co-author, Gina Bria, one day called me up and she said, I'm with this organization called the Hydration Foundation. And I got your name from a mutual friend, and I'd love to come in and talk to you about it. And I'm thinking, oh, she's going to sell me, some Ponzi scheme water purifier thing.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and and I said, sure, because I respected the mutual friend. So she comes in, sat down, brings me a smoothie, and sits down and proceeds to tell me about the work that she's doing, and that she knows about this work of Dr. Gerald Pollack, who's like the world's premier water researcher, has discovered that there's another phase of water at University of Washington in Seattle. And she blows my mind,
Mm,
completely blows my mind. So I just said he discovered another phase of water. So that
mhm,
that in and of itself at the time was mind blowing. We know that water exists as liquid, ice, and vapor. We've learned that since we were kids.
mhm,
He's telling us that there's another phase. It goes through another phase, and that's the fourth phase of water. It's really interesting, and it turns out that it's his belief and many other people's beliefs that that's how water exists in our cells, and that's how water exists in nature.
mhm.
And so
Does it have a name, by the way, that fourth phase of water?
he has many names. He calls it easy water. It stands for exclusionary zone.
Mhm,
Um, I think what most people may know it by as structured water or gel water,
mhm,
fourth phase of water. It goes by a lot of different names. People, and water researchers, what most water researchers agree upon is that there are other phases of water, and but they don't necessarily all agree. Like, there's no way to sort of know exactly what that is. But his theory is, it's beautiful. It lays out beautifully. It makes so much sense, and it's fascinating to read. Um,
So is this phase between the liquid phase and then the ice phase? Is
probably,
it somewhere in
probably,
between
yeah,
there?
Yeah. So think about, the ways, and there are ways to measure it, according to Dr. Pollack. So it has to do with how the H2O, first of all, the simplest molecule in the world, which turns out to be one of the most complex molecules in the world, which I didn't know what I was getting into when I said to Gina, do you want to write this book? Because I've been searching for my book. I know how important hydration and food is, because that's what I focus on. But this is a whole different, thing. So it turns out that H2O molecule is way more complicated than I ever imagined. But it's so structured water has to, and easy water has to do upon how those molecules, those H2O molecules, how they layer upon each other.
Mm-hmm.
In that layering, they start to share electrons. And so when it's in that phase and it's active, he calls it H3O2. So it actually takes on a little bit of a different chemical composition. And it's in that phase that, think about, it's believed, when you go near a waterfall, you feel the energy. It's so energized.
Mm-hmm.
So that waterfall is loaded with this structured water. Think about things like at the beach. That water early on in the beach is very structured and energized.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the easiest way to really think about it is think about how desert plants hydrate. You open up an aloe leaf or a cactus leaf, and literally this gel falls out. Now, that's not just H2O in there. There are other, there's other fiber and things in there, collagen and whatever it is. But that is loaded with this structured water. So it's a little different texture. Think about cucumber seeds,
Mm-hmm.
that gel on cucumber seeds. So it's believed that water in vegetables, that water that's locked in vegetables or plants, is how water is in that other phase of water, mostly in that other phase of water.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
And you mentioned you think that, or it's hypothesized that same phase is what is within our cells,
yes,
and
yes,
cellularly as well, or we don't
yes.
know.
We believe, and but it's when it starts to get into the cell, it is a little more structured.
Mm-hmm.
And so we take that and run with it in the book. And it turns out, it turns out to be a very simple message, by the way. Everything that I'm saying, it ends up to be a really simple message. And
Mm-hmm.
the book was published about 5 years ago. And the amount of letters that I got that this book has changed my life is overwhelming. But the truth is, it is so beautiful, because all it is learning how to hydrate better, eating more plants, eating more, drinking more water, hydrating better. It's a simple message. Like, we really simplify it in the book.
It's
The
a simple
science,
message, but sometimes people need something that is structured to convey that simple message, and then to make it into a habit. I think that's really the key. Is we've all heard, you need to hydrate more, stay hydrated, et cetera. But when you give people the plan, the steps, this is what you can do. And then you have these amazing recipes in the book as well. So.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you them at the end of this. I'll give all of them.
Oh, awesome. Excellent.
You've been listening to the IQ podcast with me, Dr. Rani Banik. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back with more insights to help you raise your IQ.
So there are a couple of eye conditions that, in my experience, are linked to poor hydration, dehydration status. They include conditions like dry eye, also migraine with aura. Many patients who develop migraine with aura tend to be very, very dehydrated. And then also there is this, it's pretty rare, but there's this type of stroke to the optic nerve called, it's a long name, but non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy, or it's for short, it's called NAION. In my patients, I've definitely noted that many of my patients who develop this type of optic nerve stroke have been dehydrated right before their vascular event happened. So it is really, really important from an eye and brain standpoint to stay very well hydrated. So now I'm going to ask you, Dr. Dana, for some of your best tips. Like if you could give us your top 3 tips on how to best stay hydrated for our brain health and our eye health, I would be really, really grateful.
Great. Easy. And that's the beauty of this. It's really easy, except I'm just going to say one thing. With food and dietary changes, I subscribe to the give me, 80-20 rule. Give me 80% and I'm happy. With hydration, you have to stay on top of it day by day, every single day. You have to stay on top of it because we can very easily lose 2% of our hydration very easily. And that happens to most of us throughout the day at some points in the day. So it's super important. And we have to talk about how do you know you're hydrated? And I'll give you that at the end too. So first thing, front load your water. This is how desert people hydrate. They don't walk around with a bottle of water. You want to front load your water. So a big glass, 8 to 16 ounces, first thing in the morning. You can throw a little, love it. Love it. You could squeeze a little lemon in there for more minerals, and you could even put a little pinch of salt and real salt in there just to get those electrolytes or electrolyte mix. So you want to.
So when you mean, sorry to interrupt, but like real salt, you mean like Himalayan sea salt or Celtic salt or something like that, right? Not
full
table
spectrum salt, right? Not a table salt. That's sodium, right? Okay. You want a good real salt that comes from nature. So it either comes from the sea or it comes from a rock salt mine. There's a brand called Real Salt that I love. And just like, if you get it, just do a little taste test between, the umbrella salt and the sea salt, or any salt, even Himalayan pink salt. To do a little taste test for yourself. It tastes so much richer. And so, it really makes a difference. So
I'm going to try that real salt, right? That's
Real Salt is the brand, and it's great. It's from the salt mines of Utah. So front load your water, super important. You want to soak those organs. I do it, I usually make it the night before. I sit it on my nightstand, and before my feet even hit the ground, it goes down. So easy. Second way to sort of, so you don't forget, is I tell people to drink a glass of water before every meal. So suck down a glass of water before your meal. This way you don't have to think about it. It's done. And then the third thing, and this is a big ask, but I really recommend a green smoothie a day. So
me too. Yay. We're on the same page.
A blended greens. So blended greens with water, and then whatever else you want to put in there. If you want to put a little green, apple in there, you want to put a lemon, ginger. There's so many recipes in the book. There's so many recipes online for smoothies. You could put protein powder in there and make it a meal. However you want to do it. And you don't have to. You could just do a green smoothie at like 11 a.m. with just blended greens, apple, and water. You want to blend it. I don't juicing. There's a place for juicing, but this is not what we're talking about. We want to blend the greens because you want the fiber in there. You want all that fiber, and then a little extra water so that you can do it, and then whatever else you want to put in there.
So you put water with the greens? Like how? Okay.
Yeah.
So I
usually
like using some kind of like milk, whether it's plant milk or some other type of milk with the greens, but I haven't actually tried it with only water.
I usually don't use any milks in my smoothies because I like fruit. I love the taste of fruit. So I'll do, lemon, apple, like a real basic, simple green smoothie is greens, usually spinach, kale, Swiss chard. I definitely recommend mixing them up too, like playing around with greens, especially now in the summer. I get a CSA. So there's all kinds of like weird greens that they put in there that I never heard of. And I'm like, oh, let's try this one. Arugula is a little weird, I think.
To rotate through them, I think.
Yeah, you want to rotate them. And greens, water, apple, lemon. That's a real
Awesome.
simple, easy one to do. And then, when you
What
start to
about
add
what
the,
about like adding some seeds? Because I always love to add some chia seeds or hemp seeds or flax seeds.
yeah,
Chia
both
seeds also, don't they like absorb some of the hydration and kind of plump up a little bit?
chia and flax are both sort of the star of the show. Those are great to add. They really do. They carry something like 35 times their weight in water. That,
Mm.
if anybody's ever made a chia pudding,
Hmm.
it literally becomes gelatinous, super hydrating. It holds on to that hydration better. I have people that say, I can't ever quench my thirst. I drink so much water and I can't quench my thirst. Just doing those things that we just said, you will notice a massive difference because now you're holding on to the water better. You're not drinking what we call plain or bulk water and you're peeing it out. You
Hmm.
need those electrolytes to hold on to them. You need the fiber to hold on to them. The chia seeds is a lot of fiber. It also has omega-3s. Great thing to do. Chia seeds are fantastic unless you're sensitive to them. And some
Hmm. Hmm. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for those three great tips. Again, number one, front load your water, right? Number two, drink a glass of water before every meal. And number three, have your green smoothie every day.
yeah.
Um, Now, I wanted to ask you, in terms of total body hydration, most of us have probably heard many times, like drink 8 glasses a day, like that's a good, target. But that's not always true for everyone, right? Isn't it based off of other factors? Like, how do you determine each person's unique hydration needs? Is there like a formula that you use?
Yeah. So great question, because how can you say a 5'2" sedentary person needs 8 glasses versus a 6'4",
Hmm.
sweaty athlete?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And it literally doesn't come from anywhere.
Yeah.
So while it may work for many people, there's one thing I'm going to say, and I think this is where I think is so important. The best measure to know that you are truly hydrated is your urine output, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
are meant to urinate every 2 or 3 hours while waking. So if you're not getting up to pee every 2 or 3 hours, you're not hydrated.
Oh,
It's that,
interesting.
yeah, it's
Okay.
that
I didn't
simple.
know it
And
was
so
that frequent, 2 to 3 hours.
every 2 to 3 hours. I mean, I know there are days that I sat at my desk 8 hours straight, never got up once. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing?
Mm.
And I think we all do that. I think we all,
Yeah, we get caught
um,
up in life and we forget to drink and we forget to go to the bathroom.
or even worse, we purposely do it so we don't have to be interrupted.
Mm.
We
Hmm.
stop drinking because we're going on a long car ride, when in reality it's important to get up and move, you know, and
Hmm.
and it's important. So I often use this: if you're on a plane and you have to interrupt the person next to you to go pee, like you're actually doing them a big favor by getting up and making them
Hmm.
get up. So yeah, so that's the best thing. If you twisted my arm and you needed a number, I need to know how much water to drink, I have to know, then a better bet is half your weight in ounces. So if
Hmm.
you're 150-pound person, you need 75 ounces of water. But it's also depends. What if you're on a ketogenic diet? If you're on a
Hmm.
ketogenic diet, it's a pretty dehydrating diet. It's a
Hmm.
diuretic. We know that.
Hmm.
It might even be 75% of your weight in ounces if it's something like that.
Hmm.
So it's not the best way to look at it. And then
Yeah.
the other things we did talk, the book was written a while ago. We talked about looking at the color of your urine as being a marker. I don't know if I think that works for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. Like you can have a pretty orange, obviously, if you're taking B vitamins, your
Yeah.
urine's going to be very orangey colored, very
If you have
concentrated.
certain foods also like beets, for example, will turn your urine red. So it's
Right.
not always the best indicator marker.
Yeah, you wanted a light straw colored is what you're striving for. But I just want to say something too. People strive, which I learned over these years, for clear colored urine. I'm not sure that's the best thing either.
Hmm.
You don't necessarily want your urine to be clear. You
Hmm.
could be peeing out
Does
too
that
many.
mean you're overhydrated? Because that can happen, right? Water toxicity.
I see it all once a week, at least in my practice, where somebody's sodium and chloride is too low because they're peeing
Hmm.
out their electrolytes. And I ask them how much water they drink. I drink so much water. I'm so proud of myself. Well, we got to you got to add some electrolytes. You got to slow that down a little bit. Have a
Hmm.
green smoothie. Change the way they're doing it.
Yeah.
And then the overt, water toxicity, which is quite rare, It happens though. I know it just recently happened to Brooke Shields. It was big news. She was preparing for an off-Broadway cabaret, drinking because she's singing and she's talking, and she literally had a seizure from
Oh my
overhydration.
goodness. Wow. I did not hear about that. Very
Yeah.
scary. Very
Yeah.
scary. So,
Yeah.
wow. So it's moderation, right?
Well,
The high end of moderation, maybe.
it's more about eating your water,
Mhm.
and it's just looking at your urine output. There are some people that need 1 glass of water a day, but they're eating tons of salads and
Mhm.
smoothies, and they're doing that kind of thing. And that's not everybody, but there are some people that's all they need, and then there's people that need more water. So it
Mhm.
really is so individualized. And it's just important for you to know your body and stop being cut off from our bodies, live in our bodies. Are you, you mentioned ocular migraines, but what about headaches? Just plain headaches. We
Yeah,
know that
in general.
dehydration
Yeah.
is probably the number one reason.
Yeah.
Uh, and
I can't tell you how many times I've heard from patients they exercise, they go to the gym, they have this intense workout, and boom, they get that headache, they get that migraine. And even though they think they're hydrating enough, in reality, they're not.
yeah,
And so that's a clear-cut indicator that you need to
yeah.
up your hydration and electrolyte intake.
And I
You
always
mentioned,
tell people too, before you start on any diet, any supplement regimen, any regimen, you must start here, because you have to start with hydration, let alone for the headaches and whatever. But our body requires it for detoxification, for
Mhm,
movement. Our joints are literally lubricated from hydration. Our brains, everything.
mhm,
So you have to always learn it, and it's easy. One day is all it takes. Learn it in
mhm.
1 day.
Yep,
Simple.
yep, and then make it a habit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned some hydrating foods. So in your opinion, what are the top like 5 hydrating foods that are your go-tos?
Um, Watermelon comes to my mind. I'm so happy it's watermelon season. I love
Mhm,
watermelon. I always tell people too, like I'm on this new kick too, make sure you eat some of the white, the pith of the watermelon. That's where all the
mhm,
nutrients are too. So it might not taste as sweet, but especially if you're going to make a smoothie, like try to really get as close to the rind as possible. Get some of that white in there.
Does it also have more fiber, that pith of the watermelon?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm, mhm,
And that goes for everything. The nutrients are always right before, the sort of what people tend to throw away. Strawberry tops, the greens of strawberries. There's a
mhm.
lot of nutrients in those. They don't taste like anything. Eat the whole thing. Why do we throw away the top of
Oh,
a strawberry?
interesting. I had no idea. I
Yeah.
had
Um,
no idea.
uh, the other thing I was going to say, so top hydrating foods, I mean, it's simple. It's vegetables, it's fruits, it's plants, so any kind of plants. Those are the real sort of stars of the show.
Mhm.
Cucumbers are
Okay.
super hydrating.
So again,
Um,
if you're eating enough of those foods and you're urinating like every 2 to 3 hours and your urine's a good color, the light yellow straw color, then you may not have to drink those 8 glasses a day or not even, 6 glasses a day. It just depends on your habits, right?
yeah. And
Hmm.
by the way, we're learning coffee counts.
Okay. All right.
How exciting is that,
And
right?
tea also? Does tea also?
Coffee and tea count
Okay.
under a certain amount of caffeine.
Yeah.
So, 4 cups of coffee, whatever the equivalent for caffeine, and it depends on where, if it's Starbucks or whatever. But there's a cutoff on the caffeine that before that it becomes, after that it becomes a diuretic. So,
Mhm.
a few cups of coffee a day is good for you.
Mhm.
And
I usually recommend, and I don't know if this is the same number as the diuretic number, but under 200 milligrams a day is
yeah,
typically what I recommend for prevention of migraine. Anything above that, people can actually have worsened symptoms.
yeah. I
Um,
gotta look up that number too. Honestly, if I had 200 milligrams of caffeine, I would be a wreck though too. So people also have to take that into account. Like
mhm.
caffeine is a drug, so
It is a
people are
drug,
super,
and it's also
super.
based on your genetics. Like
Yeah,
people metabolize caffeine differently. So,
yeah, yeah.
So, Dr. Dana, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. I know you have some exciting news coming up. So, you want to share with us what's going on in your life,
Yes.
in your
So
world?
my next book is coming out in September, published through
Yay!
Hay House. Me and I have a new co-author, Colin Sapphire. He invented the Beast Blender, so check that out. And it's another very simple message, but empowering and what's the word I'm looking for? Just will really make a difference. And it's about how to get ultra processed foods out of your diet, how to up level your nutrition every step of the way. Think, using the blender, and there's a lot of science behind that. Where we fit it in, but it's an easy read with lots of stories and fun read, much like Quench. So I'm hoping to
I'm
get that in
still
the
looking
hands.
forward to it. Is there a title? Can you share the
It's called
title with us?
Fuel Up.
Fuel Up.
Fuel Up, yeah. And I think soon I'll start to post about it because it can be pre-ordered on Amazon now.
Okay.
So
Wonderful,
yeah.
wonderful.
And
So
then
everyone who's listening, Quench, first of all, that's already out there, and then Fuel Up is Dr. Cohen's newest book. So how can listeners get in touch with you? How can they follow you and learn more about what you're doing?
Probably start with my website. So it's drdanacohen.com. And then you can follow me on Instagram from there and Facebook and all those things.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And you mentioned that you had some recipes to share. So we'll put that link in the show notes as well, so you can access those amazing smoothie recipes.
Yeah.
Well, our time has already come to an end. We've had such an amazing conversation. I learned so much. Every time I talk to you, Dana, I learn so much. So thank you. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And I will see you at the next IQ podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the IQ podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something new to help elevate your IQ. If you loved what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the podcast with your friends. Stay connected with Dr. Rani Banik for more eye-opening insights on eye health, nutrition, and lifestyle. Until next time, keep your vision clear and your IQ sharp.